Hello, everyone. This is Sandy Anastasi, and I am so glad to hear and to see all of you here this evening. It just makes me so excited when I see the support that I'm getting for doing these webinar overviews of the Anastasi system. So before I even get started, I just want to thank every one of you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to come and be here with me this evening. I'm going to be talking about an overview of the Anastasi system of psychic development level 2. Now, most of you who are on here were already on with me a few weeks back when I talked about the level 1, which was the introduction to the entire system. And of course, that system, the Anastasi system of psychic development, consists of 6 different levels. And those levels are very, very comprehensive. And together, if you take all 6 levels, that truly is the equivalent of a college degree in psychic development. So I'm hoping that all of you are going to have the opportunity to go through all of the classes with me, certainly all of these PowerPoint webinar presentations with me. Tonight's class, Psychic Development Level 2, is on energy and auras. And we're going to be talking all about what I cover when I teach the comprehensive class. So this evening is going to be a lot of material being thrown at you all at once. But if you get my book, which is available on my website, www.sandyanastasi.com, it's available as an ebook and also as a hard copy book. If you get my MP3s or my CDs or my Blu-rays of these classes that I offer, you're going to be able to get the complete class and take that in the comfort of your own home. And certainly if you're able to travel, I'm hoping that you're going to come and see me wherever you find me teaching. And I will be teaching in the next month right here in Florida. I'll talk about that a little bit later. Folks, I know you noticed that I had you muted when you first came on. I can feel you out there, so I know everybody's here and listening attentively, and I'm glad to have you here. But the reason we mute the mics, just for your information, is because otherwise we get so much feedback on the line that the broadcast really would not be fun to listen to. But as I go through my discussion, I'm going to be choosing, or Lisa, my assistant, who's in the chat room with you folks now, is going to be choosing certain people randomly, and those people will have an opportunity to become unmuted and ask their questions. And so there will be an interaction in this webinar between myself and you, the student, as well. And please, if you look down, you're going to see that there's a section where you can actually ask questions, a little chat area, if you will. Please feel free to make your comments in the chat area, to ask questions in the questions area. My assistant, Lisa Freeman, is on board with us this evening, and she's going to be able to answer some of those questions herself right in the chat room and in the question and answer section as well. And of course, some of those questions which really are going to need my attention, she's going to direct to me when I open the microphones to have some questions from the group. So back to the webinar. Tonight is an overview of the Anastasi system of psychic development level 2. This system, you now know, has been in existence for over 30 years. It's taken that long to become fully developed. It is known, well known throughout the entire world because there are just so many psychics who are very successful on, as a matter of fact, my husband likes to say that I have students and actual psychics that I've trained on every single continent on the planet except for Antarctica, and I'm working on that. Okay, so now as a matter of fact, I can kind of giggle because one of my students is actually on Antarctica right now doing testing, but she doesn't live there. So yeah, this is a very, very well-known system, and it's trained successfully a whole lot of professional psychics. And matter of fact, one of my former students has said that if you go to a psychic who has taken training, there's a good probability that your psychic has either studied directly with me, taking the Anastasi system, or has at least studied with somebody who has studied with me, it's been around that long, and it's affected that many people. So I'm welcoming all of you to be here. I'm grateful that you're here, and you know, you folks are my dream come true. So let's take a look at the next slide. The Anastasi system level 2 itself, the actual level 2. This is a slide of my book that we're looking at. And if you are studying the entire, it's about 15 hours of work if you take it on Blu-ray or the CDs or the MP3s. If you study the entire thing, it's a very good idea to have the book to refer to. I'm going to go over basically everything that's in the book. I'm going to touch upon this evening, so you are going to know what's in that book. The book is available very inexpensively as an ebook, both on my site, sandyanastasi.com, and also on Amazon.com. And it is on energy and auras. This, from my perspective, is one of the absolute most important parts of your psychic development. And whether your intent is to be a professional psychic or whether it is simply to be able to move through your world in a healthier, more whole way, understanding more of what's going on as you move through the world around you, interacting with the people around you. So you really are going to benefit by studying energy and auras. And I always say to people, because I don't want to say I've got a monopoly on this, there are many psychic development teachers. If you don't study with me, then study with someone else. Learn about the energy in the world around you. We live, folks, in a psychic world, and we live in a world of energy. And as we begin to embrace that, not only, as I said in the last webinar, does our world become so much richer because all of our 5 psychic senses awaken and develop their psychic counterparts, we also begin to relate to each other as energy beings, where we can actually feel the energy that moves between us. We can actually see the auras that flow around us, around all things, and especially all living things. And so in this class, you're going to be learning all about energy and auras, what they are, how to work with them, how to read them, how to interpret them, how to protect from picking up energies that you don't want, how to ground energy when you become overburdened with energy. I mean, I can go on and on. This is an extremely complex subject. There's been a great deal written on this. I encourage you, start with my book and go out and read everything that you can get your hands on auras, on energy, and you will not be sorry that you did, because there is just so much to learn, and it enriches your life in every single way. All of your relationships will improve. Your ability to get along with other people, with your colleagues, with your boss, with your family members, with your husband or wife or children will be enhanced. Energy and auras is crucial to all people who want to actually become psychics, because you see, when you are working with a person, you can't help, because you are naturally empathic, from feeling their aura, their energy, and you can't help from seeing clairvoyantly a lot of the energy that's around them, or receiving telepathically or empathically their thoughts. And all of this occurs because you are unconsciously reading their energy and their aura while you're doing your psychic reading. So it's imperative as a psychic that you understand how this works, so that you can actually control your sessions with clients and make sure that you're handling the client properly and that you're giving them what it is they really need and require. So let's go to the next slide. What is an aura? This slide gives you a real basic overview. Nobody really knows what an aura is. Years back when I first started seeing auras, it was really a little bit difficult, because at that point, nobody believed they existed. That was back in the early 70s, and the Russians were just beginning to experiment with something called Kirlian photography, which incidentally was invented by an American, but was never developed here. It was poo-pooed, and the Russians picked it up because they had a very well-developed psychic program, psychic investigation program back in the 60s and 70s. And so what happened over in the Soviet Union, which is what it was called back then, is that they picked up this Kirlian photography, which was actually able to photograph the aura. And I was very lucky because I was seeing these things, and everybody that I knew thought I was pretty nuts. And so when I discovered that the Russians were photographing them, it was really exciting. That it told me that I wasn't as crazy as I thought I was, or as everybody else thought I was. That's a better way of putting it. Incidentally, Kirlian photography is only available in still photography. Many of you have gone to psychic fairs where you've seen the aura in motion type of photography, and you should be aware that that doesn't really photograph the aura at all. What it's doing is doing things like measuring moisture on skin, the heart rate, pulse rate. It's taking all these physical responses and then converting them to the picture that you see on the screen. So that's why you put your hand in a glove when you get this done. If the machine and the picture has been developed by someone who sees auras, well, then it's actually going to be pretty accurate to what the real aura would look like, but that isn't Kirlian photography. Kirlian photography, K-I-R-L-I-A-N, is done with still photography. As I understand it, the film for it is prohibitively expensive, but it actually takes the colors in the energy field around the body. So what is the aura? It literally is an electromagnetic field of energy that surrounds and permeates all things. We used to say it only permeated things that were alive. It doesn't. The fact is that every single thing that exists on our physical plane has an aura. The aura is the energy field. It is also the thing. The aura actually permeates and integrates with the entire thing. Imagine that you are a being that exists on many different levels, cosmically speaking. You have many different parts of yourself existing on every plane of existence, all the way back to the Creator. There's a tiny tendril of self all the way up those planes, even though you may not be able to consciously access that. Well, as you get closer and closer to the physical plane, that energy becomes denser and denser and denser, until on the physical plane itself you have a physical body. Well, what the aura is that part of that energy which is on the next level up. And it is not physical, but it's so close to the physical that if we put our hand very close to it, and I show my students how to do this in my classes, you can actually feel it. You can feel the vibration, you can feel the warmth, you can feel like a buzzing or a wet sensation. And that's, in many books you'll see that called a proximity sense. A lot of people who study martial arts develop that proximity sense. It's very closely related to the sacral center. If you remember last time we did the chakra exercise when we studied Psychic Development Level 1, we worked on that. Well, the sacral center is very closely associated with your ability to sense auras and to work with auras. The aura itself has multiple layers. So it's on that next level above the physical, but in itself, it has several different layers. The first layer, which is closest to your skin, is called the etheric aura. Just above that, we have the astral aura, and if you're clairvoyant, it's the astral aura in which you're going to see colors. And some clairvoyants will actually see the forms, the thoughts that you're thinking will manifest in that astral part of your aura. Then you have what I call the auric shell, and that's literally like a wall, a cell wall, like you have a cell in your body that is permeable and only allows things in and out at once. Well, your aura is very much the same. For example, if you're standing next to someone in a supermarket and you and that person have a lot in common, it may be a whole lot easier for you to connect with that person, and so you just automatically start a conversation because you intuit that that person will be receptive to you. And of course, then you might find out, for example, that you're both ex-New Yorkers. That happens to me all the time, okay? So that's something that you have in common, or that emotional concern, that will allow that auric shell to become permeable to what's going on in the world around you. In a healthy aura, that auric shell is able to keep out vibration that you don't want inside, just like a cell in your body would be able to keep out a toxin or a chemical it doesn't need or doesn't want right now, okay? Outside of your aura, again, we have 3 levels, etheric, astral, and then the shell. Outside of that shell is actually another part of your aura, which I call the worldwide psychic web. And that's where this energy, which is a part of you, becomes less and less dense and merges literally with the energy of every other being and every other thing around you. And once we learn to access the worldwide psychic web, we can read anything and anyone, anywhere. It's pretty amazing. And honestly, I call it the psychic web because it truly works just like the web in the computer world, the internet web. So I often toy with my students and say that the reason we have the World Wide Web going on right now is so that we can all have training wheels on our bicycles so that we can one day be just as good at surfing the worldwide psychic web. So someday we're going to all be surfing without needing those airwaves that are creating the computer web. The aura has many colors. And one of the things I do with my students is I actually go over and I talk about the colors and what they mean. And one of the ways you can start, if you do this on your own, is to relate the colors that could be in the aura to the colors of the chakras. And each color does have a different significating meaning. And those colors can change and shift as you change your mood, or as you change what you're thinking about, or as your chakras flow in and out of balance. And each one of you will have a particular color which is most common to you, and that will be your stamp. It's like your fingerprint cosmically. Just like each one of you will have your own vibration. You'll resonate. You can almost hear that vibration as a tone, because remember, it's an electromagnetic field of energy, that aura, and it vibrates. And since it vibrates, it almost makes a kind of tonal energy that if you were able to hear the energy, to tune into that, you'd actually hear that note, which is you. Isn't that interesting? So it could be that you would actually be able to hear yourself. There are actually some yogis in India who are able to hear the aura and then deliver it back to you. I talked about this in Psychic Development Level 1. Now you can see what it is. And they give you your tone, your sound, so that you can resonate that sound. I'm not one of those yogis. I can't do that for you. But I have heard my own. And so I do know that this is a very real thing that we can do. And if you want to know if the tone you're hearing might be your own energy, it usually is a bell-like, very clear, single-tone sound. So each person has an aura around them and through them that is them. It's not an extension of you. It is you. It's just a part of you which is non-physical, that's closest to the physical plane. And that aura is, like a fingerprint, totally unique to you. And it will have a primary color or a couple of colors that you are in most of the time. But when you think about something, when you become emotional about something, when you spend time with somebody whose aura is a different color, you will take on those other colors, okay? So it's really interesting when you kind of turn on that color button in your psyche, in your third eye, your crown, when your crown and your third eye open together, you get to see those auras, those colors. And when you do that, and you start to see those colors interacting together, it's really pretty amazing. Okay, let's take a look at our next slide. This gives a graphic representation of what I was just speaking about. So this is a really good one for you to take a look at. Notice that the top arrow, that is the etheric aura, that points all the way to the fellow's head. And right around his head, you see that, like that little white glow. Well, that white glow that's immediately around him, and it usually is white or bluish white or yellowish white, but it's some version of white, that will only stand out 1 or 2 inches. If somebody's really relaxed and having a great time with the world, it might stand out 3 inches, but it's close to the body. The astral aura is the egg shape. And that astral aura is what I was telling you before, where the colors will be. Now, this diagram doesn't show the color, but if you could imagine, we could conceivably see orange above his head, and a lot of blue around his heart, and maybe some green around his hands, and all those things would mean things that were going on for him. And one of the interesting things is that we all see color differently, so you can pick up a book that gives you insight into what different colors mean, but you still have to work with it yourself. You can use my book that tells you what the different colors mean, but you need to work with it yourself and practice seeing the aura. I teach a technique of seeing the aura, which was taught to airline pilots during World War II. It uses the peripheral vision because it's the, you saw this on Facebook, I talked to you about this, it's the rods of the eye that will actually be able to see that astral aura and perceive the color, which is sort of interesting because the rods are actually the black and white sensors in the eye, but those are the sensors that are able to stimulate us to be able to see clairvoyantly. So this is why we tend to pick up and see those flashes of light or those shadows with our peripheral vision. And when we first start to see the coloring auras, we have to look almost not at the object, but through the object or through the person, and then we'll start to see the glow around it. Anyway, there's a very easy technique to learn, and everyone is able, with practice, to see the etheric aura and to see the astral aura. Now, there's also, I'm going to show you this in a few more slides, but there's also a crown center mandala that I have my students work with frequently because it will stimulate the opening of both the third eye and the crown. We're going to get to that in just a moment, but you'll see what I'm talking about when we do because you really feel it. It's pretty intense. Now, this diagram is really nice because it also points that auric shell quite beautifully. See the auric shell in here? Okay, so we can actually see that auric shell that is surrounding the whole egg shape, okay? And that shell is what I was talking about earlier. In a healthy person, someone who's not sick or not emotionally despondent or emotionally ill, that shell is nice and solid, the aura is nice and brilliantly colored, and that shell is going to allow information in and out selectively. And that's very important factor. Now, outside of the shell is that grid. And if you can imagine, that grid is actually three-dimensional. It's not just, you know, here on my screen, it's actually showing it as flat, but it's a three-dimensional grid. It's more looking like an egg crate. So information can move all through and around that, and you get to selectively pick it up. This is why I say we are living in a psychic world. Look at that. We all are living in a psychic world. We're all communicating with each other all the time. Clairvoyantly, we're communicating empathically, we're communicating with our psychic senses, our psychic sense of smell, our psychic sense of taste, our psychic sense of touch. All of those senses are constantly working and expanding, and as mankind evolves, as all of us are, you're becoming more and more able to feel that energy, okay, to feel that energy, and to recognize the psychic world that you're living in. And so a class like this is why I keep saying how important Psychic Development Level 2 is to everyone, whether you want to be a psychic or not. It gives you a better handle to figure out what's going on in your world because it's helping you to literally stimulate those senses and activate them to be more sensitive on every level to what's going on in your environment. And let's look at the next slide. Here's our 7 chakras. Okay, the 7 chakras. And you saw this slide last week, or last time I spoke with you. And the top center, we'll start with the top, is your crown center. The crown center is actually associated with your higher self. So a lot of the work we do when we work with the chakras, as we did in level 1, where we did that chakra exercise to open the chakras, a lot of the work that we do is geared to raising the energy to open particularly these upper centers so that we are able to be able to make the connection to our higher self and our guides. It's at the crown center level that connection is made. Now, the third eye center is located just between the brows. It's at the root of the nose. And that third eye center is the center which, when stimulated, allows us to see the aura. Now, if you can imagine, the third eye center is connected, it's called the Ajna center, by the way, in the East, and it is connected to the pineal gland, which is an interesting gland because that's a gland that is sensitive to light waves beyond the visible spectrum. And that pineal gland actually sits inside of your head as if it's a small fist, microscopic, very tiny fist, nestled in a hand. And if you can imagine that the hand that surrounds that fist belongs to the crown center and the gland that connects to it, which is the pituitary gland. So you see your crown center and your third eye center are so close together energetically that when one opens, the other one almost automatically opens. So when we work on developing the third eye, we also open the crown. When we work on opening and developing the crown, we also open the third eye. This is why all types of meditation which stimulate the opening of the crown center also stimulate the third eye. It's also why, if you've done meditation with an Indian group or with a meditation group from the East, they will tell you to ignore all of those insights or sounds or things you think you see or voices or messages. Ignore them all, because all those things are coming from the third eye, and that is not where they want you focusing. They want you focusing on raising your spiritual center, which is done through the crown center. And yet the two things always go together. It's just kind of an interesting little side effect. So you can use the same techniques to develop your spirituality, your oneness, your balance of self. And the side effects to developing all those things are that you also become more energy sensitive, more clairvoyant. All those psychic senses that we all have begin to develop. The throat center is used, I think of it as the center of will and power. It's used in imagination and creation, and it's also very, very much used in skills like psychometry and being able to feel the vibration on an object. If you look at this body, just look at how close that throat center is to the arms and the energy that will come right after the hands. And then below the throat center, we have the heart center. And folks, the heart center is the center which must be open and as developed as possible in all people who are going to be successful energy healers. Incidentally, if any of you listening to this webinar are interested in the whole concept of energy healing, or if you are already energy healers or have even an interest in it, please be aware that studying all the things that are here in my Psychic Development Level 2 is going to be a tremendous aid to everything that you're doing in your healing work. So the heart center needs to be open and developed to do your best healing work. The solar plexus center, just below the heart, that's the yellow one, that solar plexus center is connected to the adrenals. And that center needs to be strong, because as the energy moves up the spine when we open our chakras, that energy is going to ultimately be contained in that solar plexus center. That's where it rests when it's not being utilized. So we want to really develop that center. And of course, we live in a world that is ruled by adrenaline these days. I have to tell you, I avoid all of those movies that make you jump, okay? Because I don't like to have that center stimulated, because that center in me is very well developed, and I don't want to give the person sitting next to me a shock. Think about that. So we can control our state of balance to a great degree by controlling our solar plexus center and not allowing our brain and our fears and our phobias and all those other things to carry us away in a way that produces adrenaline in an unbalanced way. The sacral center I mentioned to you before is very, very involved. It's a super creative center, but it is very involved in feeling the energy. And this is why so many martial artists, because this is the center which is very strongly stimulated in martial artists, and it is that, they call it the seated body mind. If you're a martial artist, you'll have heard that term. And a martial artist will always, almost always, develop that proximity sense where they'll actually be able to feel someone entering the room, Or you've had this happen when you're home and your husband or your wife is almost turning onto your block. You feel them coming. That's a proximity sense. You're actually feeling them getting closer energetically. That feeling that you get that someone just walked into the room, so you have to turn and look behind you. That is when you're feeling their aura. And this can be a skill that gets very, very finely honed and very well developed. Okay, you'll notice also in this diagram that I'm talking about the astral tubes. When I actually get into depth in this class, and you folks who are into healing should recognize this, I really give a very detailed discourse on how we can work with the chakras to help to heal ourselves. And you'll notice there are three, the Sushumna is the center of the spine, but the Ida is on one side and the Pingala the other. The energy in a normal person who hasn't been developing their chakras consciously will flow up the Ida and down the Pingala, and it'll go that direction for 2 hours. Then it will actually reverse the direction, and it will spend the next 2 hours reversing that flow. But when you begin to work with the chakra exercise, you begin to be able to carry far, far more energy because you bring that energy up the spine. So here, why is this important? Because it gives you an insight and understanding of how you can actually raise your consciousness. If you were in the physical class with me, I would be able to put my hand against yours. I'd have you feel the aura. I'd be able to tell you how the different chakras feel as you put your energy and your focus into them. We could go into many, many different healing aspects. So although this is not a class for healers specifically, healers will benefit dramatically from it. So let's take the next slide. Here is our crown center mandala. I mentioned this before, and I would like you to just take a few moments as I'm talking to let your eyes go into what I call soft focus. Let them kind of almost go a little bit cross-eyed and relax them, and watch what happens to that crown center mandala. I use this on all of my materials. It's almost become one of my trademarks, and yet I can't say to own this symbol. It's a universal symbol. It is literally what a clairvoyant would see if they were looking at the motion of your crown center, which is often called in the East the 1,000-petaled lotus. And so I work with this diagram in my classes, and I'm offering it to all of you to work with, because as you can see, as you're looking at it, you're starting to see color shooting out from that. You're starting to see that center pulsate, and you feel that odd sensation in your eyes and that pressure on your root of your nose and your crown. And all those things you're feeling have to do with your third eye being stimulated. Okay? And so this is a phenomenal tool for developing your third eye and your crown, and through them developing your ability for clairvoyance. So let me just take a little aside here, that by looking at this diagram, just by looking at this diagram, you're going to stimulate your clairvoyance, your ability to see auras. By doing the chakra exercise that you learned in Psychic Development Level 1 when I did that webinar with you, you learn how to bring your energy up the spine, up that Sushumna column, and through that raise your consciousness and bring more energy to bear, so that you're able to open this crown center to a greater level. And now you also know that through physical activities like Tai Chi Chuan or Qigong or yoga or various other forms of martial arts, you're going to be able to develop the sacral center, which is going to help you to develop your proximity sense, your ability to feel auras. Isn't that interesting? So you're already doing a lot of the things that will help you to develop these psychic skills. This is why I'm seeing the world evolving, and more people around us developing psychic skills and saying, hey, what's that? Like me, when I was back in my 20s and I started to see auras, and everybody said, oh, you should have your eyes checked. And I said, no, I think I really am seeing them. Let's go read about this curling photography. Okay. I was just lucky that that came out then. And then I had my girlfriend, Lynn, who could also see them and said, yes, Sandy, that really is green. It's not your imagination. So our next slide talks about sensing the aura. So let's move to the next slide. The aura is an energy system. And as I said earlier, it is unique to you. Your energy field, your aura, is in fact the most unique thing about you. You know, they used to use fingerprints. Now they're getting to, then they were using eyes because they were unique. Now they're getting to DNA. Eventually they'll just be able to have a device which reads your vibration, because your vibration is the only one in the universe that is like yours. I think that's pretty amazing. And I also teach my students how to take that aura, your own aura, and feel it, how to feel other people's aura, how to expand and contract your aura. It's kind of like a stretching. It feels so good. It's almost like coming out of your skin, so that you can feel that you're more than your physical body, and you truly are. If you're studying my classes on CD or MP3 or in person, the exercises to do that are on those classes. And yes, they're in the book as well, but it is so much nicer to have it where you're, in fact, I even have the meditations on your own CD. It's so much nicer to be guided through this and to actually be able to feel that energy pulsing around you. Everyone's aura has different properties. And because I'm an astrologer, I equate those properties to air, earth, fire, and water. And as an astrologer, I have my own symbol system of what those qualities mean. And so that helps me to understand what I'm feeling from a person. You will develop your own system depending on what your background is. And it's pretty amazing. We changed the slide here. Can we go back to sensing the aura, please? Yeah, thank you. Not done with it yet. You're going to find when you're putting your hand out to touch somebody that one person might feel cool, but another person feels warm. And that it's not just a physical sensation that you're feeling, it's an energetic sensation. And this way you will understand that everyone is unique. By the way, when I'm teaching people to sense an aura, to feel an aura, I always teach them to protect themselves. You know, here in the West, we do a lot of handshaking, so we're used to making those auric connections, but you know, it's different when you put your hand out to feel someone's aura. You're kind of opening to them in a way which tells your auric shell, okay, I'm going to feel, and I'm going to, you know, I'm going to allow this to enter me. And you really don't. You don't want just anything to enter. And so if you're, you know, if you're shaking someone's hand in a normal way, that's fine. But if you're putting your hand out to feel an aura, well, that's a whole different, you know, thing. And you're going to want to use the protection that's in my book. I think about it as putting on a psychic glove or a bracelet that prevents that person's energy from entering me. Okay? So always remember that. And you healers, if you put your hand on somebody to do healing work on them, and you've got the idea of doing energy work in mind, you should also be putting those psychic protectant gloves or bracelets on. Because that energy flows both ways. It's not just you putting energy into them, and usually healers, psychic healers, will see that energy is coming from God or from the all that isness around us, so they don't see it as themselves, but still, that energy is flowing through you. And anytime you open an energy pathway, it's always a two-way street, so you can always absorb back from the person, so you always should be protecting yourself. Okay, now, let's look at the next slide. Now I'm ready for you. By the way, my wonderful person who has set all this up for me, developed my PowerPoint slides, and is helping me by putting these slides up here, is none other than Trish. So everybody sitting there in front of your own screen at home, please give Trish a very silent but big hand, because she's just doing this absolutely amazing job. Thank you, Trish. This shows our man again standing here in his auric shell, his auric egg shape, the astral aura in the worldwide psychic web, and it takes it a little bit in a different direction. And this is what I want you to begin to see. Your aura is within that auric shell, that egg shape. The environment, which is also a psychic gestalt, is outside of that egg shape. So you have your home, your trees, you have everything around you that's outside of that environment around you. You, the man here, is connected. See that zigzag line that takes us over to the house, you are connected to all of these things in your world and around you through that worldwide psychic web. Think about this. Imagine that if you are really connected, you could be at work, but if your child is home and getting into trouble in the house, you're going to know it, because if you're connected, it's almost like there's this little bell goes off and it stimulates, you know, it moves through that shell, that osmosis we talked about before. It goes in to affect you. It rings your bell. It says, whoops, something's going on with my kid. I better call home. Okay? So this is very important. It allows us to connect not just telepathically, but energetically to everything in our world. And what's pretty amazing is that I do teach my students that when they're feeling the aura of a partner, not only can they read the partner's personality, but they can read things that are going on in the partner's life. They can tell where the partner lives. They can tell things about the partner's friends. So there is, if your mind's going in the same place mine is, there is also a very great deal of ethics that have to be taught and have to be understood with this. It's like, just because I know how to get into your house doesn't mean that I have a right to walk into your house, does it? Well, it's the same thing true psychically. I may have the ability to surf the worldwide psychic web and to enter anybody's space that I choose, but unless I have your tacit invitation, I do not have the right to do that. The thing is, you folks need to realize that there will be some people out there who don't have those ethics. And so along the way, not only do you learn how to surf the web with people who have invited you to do that, like your child at home, but you also learn how to protect yourself from other people who might be surfing the web illicitly. Isn't that a nice thing to know? Okay? So I think now is a good time to take a little quick break and let you folks ask a couple of questions. I've covered a lot of material so far, and I don't want to lose you. So I have Lisa looking at hands and questions. Lisa, do we have somebody who would like to ask a question? I saw some questions being answered or asked all the way back right at the beginning, in fact.
Yeah, let me see if I can unmute Annette and see if she'll talk to us. Annette, you're unmuted. Do you have a question?
Hello. Well, my question isn't pertaining to the material tonight, so it pertains to just personally that in meditations and such that I've been trying to increase my meditations, and what I was wondering about is since we're able to see into the future sometimes, I've had clairvoyant experiences. What is the effect of having like a prayer life or meditating to try to surround some of the healing energy if it's already set in the future what an outcome is?
Who said it was? I certainly never said that.
Right, but I mean, we all have clairvoyant experiences, like visions or dreams of things that happen in the future. So how is it that we're able to see something that happens in the future, but yet have a prayer life to affect an outcome that will be different?
Yeah, and you're right, that isn't really the subject of tonight's discussion. However, it's a darn good question, so I'm going to answer it. The fact is that nothing's carved in granite, okay? As a matter of fact, one of the things that I always tell my clients when I read them, because when I read as a future-oriented channel. I read the future. That's how I work. And I'm quite good at it. I've been doing it for a very, very long time. And I get things that are very, very accurate all the time. And my guides have been very clear with me, wow, the only reason you can be accurate is because people aren't making any changes. Okay? The fact is that psychics can only make predictions of probabilities. And the best psychics, because they're receiving guidance or because of the way that they've taught themselves or learned to work, are able to make very, very good predictions based on those probabilities. The thing is, there's one probability you can't ever predict, and that's free will. So you see, when I make a prediction for you, I am predicting the outcome of the event at hand, provided neither you nor any of the other people involved change their current way of thinking and acting. As long as you don't change your emotional focus on what is going on, we can predict that future, okay? But the fact is that more and more as mankind is evolving, people are making individual choices, and they are changing their behavior and their emotional patterns. And so it becomes harder and harder to make accurate predictions. So what I usually tell my clients is, you know, all the things that you hear that you like, well, just sit back and wait to see if I'm right. But all the things you hear that you don't like, make a point of changing. And how do you change those things? You change them by changing how you feel about them in the now. Okay? Now, on another subject, there are some things in life that your soul, your higher self, has incarnated in order to go through an experience so that it can grow. Those things will happen, whether they're good, bad, or indifferent. And guess what? There is no psychic on the planet who will be able to predict them. Because if your guides don't want you changing them, they're going to make absolutely certain you don't know about them. So back to your question, how can prayer help? Prayer can certainly help because it helps you to change how you think and how you feel. And prayer is a focus of energy. Remember, you're in the worldwide psychic web here. We have this guy who's projecting a thought to this house. You see? He's projecting that through the web. If he's saying prayers, he's saying happy, projected prayers that are protecting that home, making the household happy, uplifting everyone within the household. And guess what? Those prayers are energy literally going through the worldwide psychic web, feeding into that household and enriching it. Do you see that? This diagram actually shows how it will work. Yes, prayers are effective. So thanks for asking the question, because it gave me an opportunity to answer really two questions that you had rolled into one there.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. And keep doing your work. You're going to have a great time with this. And Lisa, is there anybody else there with their hand up?
Yes, I'm going to scroll down to Michelle. Michelle, you are unmuted.
Michelle, can you hear us? I think Michelle fell asleep. Okay. How about someone else?
Let me try. Let me scroll down to Sherry. Let's see if Sherry's still with us. Sherry, you're unmuted.
Hello, Sherry.
Hello.
Question.
I feel like I have friends, and then I go through friends, and I change friends because I outgrow them, and I'm more satisfied with not having friends because of what I'm learning. I feel comfortable with being with
Again, this is another question that's not specifically related to our topic this evening. I wish we had some questions that were right on target here. But, you know, I'm going to answer your question anyway, because I think that everyone else on this call is going to have a similar question. Initially, when people become involved in their own spiritual or psychic development, because the two are very closely related, you begin to see the world differently, and you begin to react to the world around you differently. And you begin to react to the people around you, perhaps with a little bit more objectivity. And that changes your relationships.
Yes.
Now, some of the people around you are going to welcome that. And they're going to see it as this enormous, oh, wow, you are so refreshing. I love these changes in you. Well, those people will go on a journey with you for a time. Others will say, I don't know what's going on with you. I can't relate with you anymore. You don't even want to talk about the things we used to talk about. And you will have less and less in common with them. I personally have many friends and family members that I have had for 20 years, and we don't talk about anything in the psychic field. In fact, it gives them a little bit of discomfort when they think about who I am and what I do. And so we don't talk about that. Instead, we talk about their kids, and we talk about college, and we talk about painting the house and laying floors. And that's fine, because I cherish those relationships, and so I continue to relate to those people on that level that makes them comfortable. So it doesn't mean, as you develop your skills and your abilities, that you have to lay aside the relationships that are comforting and that bring you joy. But you do have to realize that you cannot drag people along with you into your newly forming world unless they choose to go. And if you only want to have friends that you have a lot in common with, well, then you're probably going to let go of a lot of people as you grow and develop. Did that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with you. There are no rights or wrongs in this. It simply is a process of development. And, you know, I have in my classes, sometimes I have husband and wives take the classes together. Sometimes I have a husband or a wife take the class, the other one doesn't, and they have some distance between them, and the other one comes back a few years later and they make that connection again. People develop spiritually at their own rate. We can't push anyone into it. Okay?
Right.
Now, how does that get into what we're talking about here? Again, we live in a worldwide psychic web. And as you grow and as you evolve, the energy that you're putting out, that you're emitting into the web around you, think about that auric shell you're looking at, the energy that's coming out of that shell and going out into the worldwide psychic web is going to change in terms of the kinds of things it's interested in. And we attract who we are. And so what happens is we begin to attract more people who are like the type of person you're becoming.
That's correct.
And, right. And that's why when we relate, if we want to continue the old relationships, we have to relate to them in the old way. We have to bury that part of ourselves that's new, because those people may not be ready for who we are. You know, you can always give them a chance, but don't force it down their throats. Okay? And be open to the new people, because those are the people that are reflecting the newly becoming you, and that's great.
Thank you.
Okay? You're very welcome. Okay, so see, I can always relate these questions, and thank you for asking that question. I can always relate these questions back to the subject at hand, because we live in a psychic world, and everything really does come under this heading, although I would like the questions to be a little more specific to the topic. And let's address one more before we move on.
Okay, I'm going to unmute Elizabeth D. Elizabeth, you're unmuted.
Hello, Elizabeth. Hello. Can you hear me? Yes, I can.
Okay, good. And on PD1,
Elizabeth, do you have the television on in the background?
oh yeah, hold on a minute.
Yeah. There it goes.
Sorry. I didn't think I could talk, but in PD1 we did a meditation. After we came out of it, I saw what looked like your auric field. It looked like the white right around you, and as you moved, it kind of shrieked by as you moved. And I wanted to know, after that meditation, why would that occur?
Because when you, remember, we'll go back, can we go back and move the slides back to the slide that shows the chakras? I believe you're talking about when we did our chakra meditation. It's called the Seven Chakras. There we go. And you see, what we did is we started with the chakra at the base of the spine, and we moved the energy through a guided visualization up through each one of those chakras in turn. And we really used our breath to pull that energy up. And what we did is we brought it up and stimulated that third eye and crown. And remember earlier tonight I said that when the third eye and the crown is stimulated, that's when your clairvoyance gets stimulated. So of course you open your eyes at the end of that, and bam, there was this white glow around everybody. Yes, it works. Okay? The chakra meditation is going to work to develop your clairvoyance, just as the crown center mandala will work to develop your clairvoyance. Two great techniques. Okay? Okay, thank you. That was a great question. Now, let's move up to our next slide. We can move right past you and your auras and go up to where it says reading the aura, Trish. Next slide. Yeah, there we go. One of the most important things when you're doing a psychic reading and you're reading the aura is to bring in your psychic protection. So, and remember what I said earlier, we all are touching each other constantly, we shake hands, we give hugs. None of those things are going to be psychically invaded or invasive without the intention of being invasive. So if we're moving through life just as normal, ordinary people, this is just warm and sharing and nice. But if we are consciously attempting to read the person or to figure out something about them or to see where they're coming from, as soon as we have one of those intentions, we open to that person energetically. So remember to do a self-check on your intention. So obviously if you're sitting down to do a reading, that's intention. But even in your daily life, if you're shaking hands with somebody and you're busy thinking, I wonder what they're up to, you're opening to that person. And any time that you're making that opening, you're allowing that auric shell to become permeable to that other person's energy. And another way that you can, there are two ways. It can be through that intention. It could also be through fear. So for example, if you have a boss at work that you're very fearful of, every time that guy puts his hand on you, you're going to feel him as invading you because you're going to become permeable to his energy because fear allows energy to come in. The other way that energy can come in is through sex. Okay, so there are three ways: intention, fear, or sex. Okay, well, we're going to assume you're not having sex with everybody, so we can put that one on the bottom of the list. But make a point that the people that you have a fear association with, deal with the fear. Get yourself past that where there is no more fear connection. And if you can't get past it, don't let them touch you. Because as soon as they make that touch, they're going to be invading you. And don't let them focus their right eye, especially not on your left eye, because the right eye is a sending eye, the left eye is a receiving eye. And the eyes send and receive energy with such incredible strength and tension. So when I used to teach school, talking about children, when I used to teach children, I would always be able to tell which children were in abusive situations at home because those children would refuse to meet my eyes. Why? Because their parent was using their own eyes to project a psychic attack on that child. Okay? So a psychic attack can be very readily generated, and it is energy. You know, when you lose your temper at someone, please think twice, because losing your temper is generating a psychic attack. So if I lose my temper and I'm sending you this piercing, nasty look, I've psychically attacked you. If I touch you at the same time, you cannot block that. I'm piercing your aura. I'm going to make you feel like crap. So guess what? One of the things we need to really be aware of in our work as budding psychics is how to utilize psychic protection. I'm going to direct you towards my own Psychic Self-Defense CD. It's on MP3. It's very inexpensive. My other two favorites are Judy Hall's The Art of Psychic Protection, and I also happen to love Ted Andrews' Psychic Protection. Now, there are a lot of books out there, so if you have one that you like better, that's fine, but those are my favorites, okay? Now, relative to when you're touching someone, if you have that intent or if you have this feeling of fear, the first thing you do is to close the intent down. No, I don't want to know anything about this person. That's like putting up a shield. Mentally, if it's a hand touch, put a mental glove on or a bracelet. If the person is touching you and you just feel very uncomfortable with it, mentally put a raincoat on. You know, a visual raincoat. Just put it on, zip it up, and it goes between, you know, your skin and their hand. They're not touching you, okay? I.e., what I'm telling you to do is to block them. Another nice tool is shields up. all of my Star Trek fans always remember that one, because as soon as I say that, you automatically feel your aura put those shields, and the aura wall becomes much more solid, okay? So the importance of psychic protection or psychic self-defense, I really can't emphasize enough. As psychics, we definitely need to do this. You all, if you took Psychic Development Level 1, that webinar, you all already learned, okay, how to do that energy bubble, okay, where you put yourself in a bubble of protection, an energy field. You've learned how to do the chakra meditation, which helps to increase your energy level. These things are also protective. And so when you go outside, you can put that energy balloon over yourself, over your car, over yourself and your kid if you're walking hand in hand. Utilize the protections that you learn with me and elsewhere. The more psychically sensitive you become, the more important it is to be conscious of protecting yourself, because you become more receptive to what's traveling through that worldwide psychic web. Establishing the auric link itself is done through clairsentience, and clairsentience is literally through touch. You're feeling the vibration. Establishing the visual link to be able to see it is called clairvoyance. Now, one of the things that's also very important to learn to do, and I do teach in my classes, right from P1, level 1, all the way up through all classes, we learn how to ground energy that we picked up that we don't want. We learn how to break links with other people that we maybe picked up and don't want, okay? And again, those techniques are very, very important. At each level that I teach, I go over how to do different types of grounding and clearing of yourself and your environment, and also how to break unwanted links and connections, okay? So those are things to put in the back of your mind as well. Now, the next slide is just a kind of a quick little graph just to show you what's happening here when we actually are feeling an aura. We don't have to touch the person to feel the aura. You know that there's a space between those two hands? And again, the best way to learn this if you're doing a self-study at home is to get the CD or the MP3 and to do the guided visualizations on it. Can you learn this from a book working with a partner? Yes. I've got to tell you that in working with Psychic Development Level 2, energy and auras, you really must have a partner, because so many of these exercises involve touch. And if you live alone, like some of my past students have, and you still want to do it, well, work with your cat or work with your dog. But you definitely need that being there that you can make that connection with. There's only so much you can do all by yourself. You can do something, but you'll come to a point where you need to have that dummy to practice on, okay? The next slide, this has to do with my psychic development workshops. You know, this is an important thing. I've been teaching my workshops pretty much nonstop for the last 30 years. And I generally do one every month, which means that I get to repeat the series twice a year, okay? So look, if you want to study with me personally, make sure you go to my website, www.sandyanastasi.com, and look for where I'm teaching next and which class I'm teaching. Although it's my preference for everyone to go through the classes in order, because I did create them in the order I did because they build and they make it easier for you to move to the next step, I will accept students popping in at any level, because I know this sounds a little bit strange to the beginner, but I've come to learn that when people are ready, I suddenly become known to them. So someone might pop in and say, you know, I know you're up to Psychic Development Level 2 or Psychic Development Level 3, but I really feel the strong need to come in, can I? And I will always say, absolutely yes. I don't ever turn someone down, because I will know that, provided there's space in the class, that is. But I will know that if they were prompted to come in at that point, it's because there's something in that material that their higher self wants them to know. And then, of course, I encourage them to go back and get the preceding classes and work through them, or to return the following year and work through those classes, just because it helps to give a better foundation, okay? But no matter what level we are at, if you see me teaching a class and you're available that time, don't hesitate, call and see if there's an opening. And of course, I have, you've seen this on my Facebook page, I have trained many people to teach these classes. And the training requires, get this, over 400 classroom hours, plus just as many, if not more, hours outside of the classroom practicing and studying. So the people who are teaching the system, and Lisa, who was in the chat room, was one of those people who is certified. The people who are teaching the system are so well qualified to teach, they could do it blindfolded, and you will find them in different areas of the country teaching. So if you can't find me teaching and you want a class in person, go and look up one of the other people who's a teacher of the system. The closest one to Florida where I teach would be Carl Woodall, who teaches in Atlanta. So check out his classes if you live up in that area. Also, those of you who are studying online and through CD or MP3, we are just about to get a coaching program started, and Lisa is going to be the coach for that program. And so you should look for that to appear soon on my website. You'll be able to not only study the classes remotely, but you'll be able to get coaching and help via email from somebody who is very well trained, and needless to say, also very close to me. If she doesn't know, she can certainly ask me because she sees and talks to me daily. Okay, so I'm hoping that you're going to take advantage of all these great and wonderful things that are coming up. And of course, you can see right here on this slide that the next time I'm teaching this class is coming up in just 2 weeks. It's February 23rd and 24th from 10 to 5 p.m. both days at the Sheraton Suites Tampa Airport West Shore Hotel. And you can register by visiting my website. And if you want to stay at that hotel, contact Lisa because she's got the inn to get you the best room rate. And I'm very, very excited about both being able to teach in this hotel. It's a great location for teaching these classes. The people are nice. Florida is great. And if we look at the next slide, this gives you an opportunity to develop your intuition in a safe, beautiful, and welcoming environment. Folks, anytime we teach a class, we protect the room we're teaching in, we protect the hotel first. You're teaching in an energetically safe place. It's almost like a clean room, okay, only it's psychically clean. We clear each other as we walk into the room. So you're in this place where you're safe while you're learning. And that's worth its weight in gold. You gain a phenomenal opportunity to get hands-on training with myself, and I also am lucky enough that I always have a lot of my teachers in training or people who are certified to teach the system with me. There's always someone there who's, I think of them as my anchor, and they will co-teach with me, acting as an anchor. So you get the ability to have this one-on-one interaction with myself and people who will have your answers. So just like here on this webinar, you're able to interact and ask questions in person, how much even better, okay? I could show you things with the aura where, how to, not just how to feel the aura, but how to alter and change the aura. I can show you how to use the aura for empathic healing, and in fact I do that in these classes. The amount of information that we cover in each one of these weekends is absolutely mind-boggling. And we do walk out of the weekend with the skills. This isn't just talk, folks. You walk out of the weekend with the skills. You learn all these things. What I'd like to do before we close is to open the mics up and see if there are any more questions that I've been able to generate. Lisa, are there any more hands up?
All right, I'm going to try to unmute Lois, see if we can get her to talk to us. Hi, Lois, you're unmuted.
Hold on a second. Hello?
Yes, we're here. We can hear you.
Okay, sorry, I had just fixed my mic. I guess I had a question in terms of, and you kind of answered it already, in terms of if you feel like you've had a crack in your egg, in your eye, what can you do? I
you if somebody's, you're not quite ready when something happens?
Okay, very, very good question. And you know, I really have to emphasize, it's, although psychic development level 2 is not in and of itself a class in psychic protection, the two things go hand in hand. You cannot teach energy and auras without also touching upon psychic self-defense, because the two things are so vastly interconnected with one another. Now, what I was talking about just before was how to ground energy after you picked it up. There are many, many techniques. I can go through a few of those very quickly for you. But you're asking me something a little bit different. You're saying, what if you feel like that auric shell is already cracked? If it doesn't have the, you know, you've been through a long-term illness, or perhaps you've had an addiction that you're trying to kick but it's not totally gone. These are things that almost make that shell thin and more permeable, okay? It's also why people, for example, having long-term illnesses in hospitals really need your prayers and your help and your support, extra energy, because when their energy level is very, very low, they're more susceptible to picking up more things to make them more ill, okay? Because that auric shell becomes thinner. So that's a really great question, Lois. Now, the best thing for you to do for yourself to heal your auric shell, to heal your aura if you have a hole in it or a crack in it, the best thing to do, we learned in the Psychic Development Level 1 webinar, and that is the chakra exercise. And that is the reason why I have it on my website, an audio version for free, and it will always be out there for free. And I'm very grateful that on YouTube there are probably at this point 200 different versions of chakra meditations, and they all work in some way. And I'm grateful that they're there, because the chakra meditation for the average person is the single best form of self-healing. So if you know somebody who's had a long-term illness and you want to help them to not just generate more energy, but to be more solid and not to pick things up from the world around them so readily, teach them the chakra exercise and go through it with them every single day to help to support them on the way through. And then there'll come a time when you don't have to even be there. They can just do it on their own. And that exercise will generate more energy. And remember, more energy, what do they say? The best offense, or the best defense rather, is a good offense. Would they say that in sports? Well, when you do the chakra exercise and you build the energy and the power of that energy within your body, it builds your auric shell and your aura up from the inside out. You become so much stronger and you have so much more energy that you are no longer the target. Okay? Now, here's something else that's important, and I'm sorry, I'm reading you a little bit along the way just because that's what I do. And one of the things you're talking about is, well, what if that crack is already there, and you're really talking about a fear-based relationship around you, okay? Okay, if I have this fear or this concern relative to this person around me, and sure enough, every time I'm around them, I either get sick, or I get tired, or I get angry, or I get demoralized, or because they penetrate my aura, what do? Well, there are some relationships that you have to break off, okay? And if you can't deal with the fear and do your chakra meditation enough to seal your aura and shut that individual out, then you may have to not answer the phone anymore. You may have to say, no, I can't work for you. As a matter of fact, I think in our last webinar, someone actually raised that point and said, well, I just quit that job. And I said, yay, hooray. Sometimes you do have to do that. You know, I always figure, give it the old college try. In fact, give it the old college try 3 times, but you know, after 3 times you're out. Did that make sense?
It did. Thank you.
Yeah. Now, I also said I would share some things with you about, you know, supposing you have connected with somebody's aura and, you know, you've gotten a download. You know, somehow maybe that person was a dumper. You know what I mean when I say that? You know, you had dinner with them and the only thing they did all through dinner was complain at you, okay? To me, that's a dumper. We all are dumpers once in a while, so I'm not pointing fingers at anybody. There's some people who are dumpers all the time, and those people we identify and we learn to avoid, okay? But everybody has a right to do the dumping once in a while. So maybe you went out with your girlfriends and she spent that afternoon or that evening dumping on you. And that was all fine and great. You're glad you made her feel better. She walked out and she looked great, more beautiful and happy than she was before, and now you feel like crap, okay? Well, what do? You know, you opened to your friend and she got you. And now you are left with all the garbage that she dumped on you. What do? Well, you can go and sit under a tree. Trees are great. They ground energy. You can go down to the ocean and take a swim in the surf. Salt is a phenomenal ground. You can take a handful of salt and throw it in the bathtub and soak in it. That works. Go in a hot tub. That works. Water is a good ground. You can, if you're really tired, take a handful of salt, throw it on the mattress under your sheet when you sleep. If it's on top of the sheet, it will pickle you. Okay? That's the voice of experience. It's not fun. But if you put it under the sheet, it still works, and you get nice and grounded. There are lots of ways that you can ground the energy after the fact. So you don't have to just say, oh, God, now I'm going to be miserable the rest of my life. No, of course there's something you can do about it. Okay? But far better is it for you the first moment you realize that your girlfriend is in the dumping mood to make sure that she's sitting on your right, not your left, because your right side generates energy. So you're not putting yourself in the receptive position. You see that? You make certain that you're not looking at her right eye as she talks. Look at the wall behind her. Look at her forehead. Look down. Look at her left eye. Just don't look at her right eye, because that's her sending eye. You may even try to do the intelligence thing, like change the topic of conversation. Or say, oh, I really feel bad for you. Now let's talk about something else. Okay? Okay. And, you know, don't feel bad if you have these issues in your life, because you know that only makes you human. We all have these issues, and this is something that we all have to learn to cope with. The partner I have who helped me to develop many of these classes, John Mayers, used to say it's the theory of the clean step. Have you ever noticed that if you live in a two-story house, that if you put an item on the stairs and say, oh, I'll come back later when I'm going upstairs and I'll take it up, and you come back and look at those stairs, about 10 minutes later, there are 4 or 5 more items on that same step? Yeah, it's almost like the more clean you get, the more people need to put a fingerprint on your windshield. Okay? So it's a never-ending battle. We're going to do a lot of things to keep ourselves clear, to raise our consciousness. And we're just going to recognize that that's going to attract a lot of people who, some come because they're curious, and some come because they have a dirty aura and they want to get rid of it. They want to feel clean. And being near you is like taking a bath, you know? It doesn't mean you're going to say, well, I'm going to stay dirty, you know. You're just going to take it in stride and say, well, I'm really glad I know all these methods of clearing myself. Okay? Did that make sense? That's it. Yeah. So you ask one question, you get an answer to 50. Is that amazing? Okay, I think I can probably do at least 2 more questions.
Let's see, I have one more here. Denise, I'm going to unmute you. Hello, Denise, are you there?
Hello, Denise. Yeah, I think some people's mics are just not working properly. Lisa, try muting her and then unmuting her again.
Denise, are you there?
Oh, I'm sorry. I did not have a question. I had already asked the protection question, and it was answered.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Okay. So you were waiting for a different Denise?
Yes, I was. Okay.
Okay. Well, and I guess if I've answered everybody's questions, everybody else is just kind of your brain.
Oh, we just had one that just popped their hand up.
Yeah, I was thinking, okay, nobody has any more questions. Either I've answered more than you want to know, or I've really confused you. Okay, what's your question?
Mary, can you hear me?
Yes, hello?
Hello, Mary.
Hi. Yeah, I just have a question about when you're, again, it was about protection. When you meet somebody and you've never that negative force when you go by them, never having, because you talked about seeing some, not looking at them, and, not, what you said with your right eye, but if you've never seen them before, and have you ever, like, gone by somebody and you have this, like, I don't know how to put it, like this very, this force go by from them that's very negative? I mean, has it ever happened to you, like where you get this pulling sensation?
Absolutely. Yeah, and I'm not going to say that there's one cause of that, okay? If you have, there are certain people who just have very powerful energy fields. I mentioned before, a lot of people who have been students in the martial arts will become extremely adept at manipulating energy. For example, you can see some of these people go, whoosh with the palm of their hand, and then they don't even have to touch the brick, and it shatters. Okay, what shattered that brick? It was a force that came from their hand, right? It's the aura itself. Okay, now people who have done a lot of that type of work, maybe not just in this lifetime, but other lifetimes, will develop an enhanced aura or energy system. Now, you could have one of those people walk by you in a bad mood, who's not, if they haven't been taught to tuck their aura in so that it doesn't bother everybody else, if their aura is out and they're angry and they're in a bad mood, and they have that training in their background that helps them to have developed that energy, you're going to feel like a black wind just went by. Okay? So, the thing is, it doesn't necessarily mean on an individual basis that that was a bad person. All of them could have. Okay? But think about it, we're all angry once in a while. We all get mad at the guy who's driving too slow in front of us once in a while. And just realize that all those negative thoughts that you might project, that person could very easily be feeling as your energy push if you don't know how to control your aura. Am I making sense to you?
Right.
Okay. One of the things that I try to do in my classes is to help you to understand not just how to feel it, but what you're feeling. Okay? Here's an example. We learn through the clairvoyance aspect of it when I teach to see an aura. So you're talking about feeling the auras. Seeing the auras can be just as interesting. And I teach what the different colors mean. And I remember teaching a class of people that black either is in an aura is either the absence of the aura, like you could be looking at a hole in the aura, or it's a very evil person, okay? Red either talks about high energy, or sex, or it can talk about rage, being angry. So if you see somebody who's got a black aura shot with red, you should be running the other way, okay? Because that's going to be a very evil person who's very angry. That's the person to leave the room if you see that aura in that shape. Well, as I said this to my students, one of the women said, "Oh my God, that's what that is." And I said, "What?" And she said, "Well, I see that every single day. I work as a guard in the state penitentiary." Isn't that interesting? Okay. Never would have occurred to me. Never would have occurred to me. But, here this gal had, it explained to her what she was looking at because she saw that on a regular basis. Now, so for somebody who sees the auras, they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. But I also feel that a feeling, as in feeling the aura, is worth 1,000 pictures.
Yeah,
You can get so many segments out of one feeling. And so, you eventually get good enough at recognizing it that you can kind of fragment it down. And, okay, was that just the martial artist who was in a hurry? Okay, and I just felt this whoosh of energy going by. Or was that somebody who was really thinking about something that angered them? Because, anybody who's in a state of anger, unfortunately, can generate a lot of energy that we all feel. That's one of the reasons why I love when my students do a lot of practice with meditation, because it helps them to be in better control of their emotions, to be better balanced. And certainly, as we get this, as we develop our chakras and raise our energy, each one of us develops more energy. You may not feel it because it's you, but the people around you will feel it. You'll recognize it's happening because, like a magnet, you're going to start attracting more and more people. And if you are aware that you've developed this extended energy field, and you are in a state of balance and harmony, you can make everybody around you feel good. But if you go into anger, or if you go into attacking somebody that loves or cares for you, now you are generating a psychic attack that maybe a year ago was just you getting angry, but right now hits them like a club. You see the difference?
I understand what you're saying, yeah.
Yeah, developing our psychic abilities, it means that we need to be very responsible, very self-responsible. Okay?
Thank you.
That was a great question. Thank you. And I may have time for one more. Is there a single last question?
Let me go down to Sharon. I can't tell from what I'm seeing on the chat room. Let me see. Sharon, did you have a question for Sandy?
Well, I was wondering why I seem to, I don't know, I have a lot of women jealous of me, and it's hurtful to me. And it's not something I want, but it seems to be happening a lot.
Yeah,
Especially with a daughter-in-law, and it's painful.
Yeah, Sharon, that's kind of a question that would be something we could get to the bottom of in a psychic reading. But let me just share that it could have so many roots. You know, there could be a tug of war over your son. There could be jealousy because you're a very attractive woman. I mean, these things don't even have anything to do with energy. They have to do with psychological issues, okay? But it is possible to engender jealousy in another person if you're walking out with your aura, your energy expanded and up and happy all the time, and other people around you who don't have it so good might be looking at you and saying, well, what has she got, you know? And
It causes sadness. I don't feel so great. It doesn't feel so happy to get that kind of reaction, though. And I'm not trying to put it out there. And it seems the more open I try to be. In fact, I went to give her a nice hug, and I felt her keeping a distance from me and closing up her aura, if you will. So that's very painful when you're so kind, you know.
Yeah, and you know, it probably has to do with factors. You know, this doesn't feel really like it's an energy thing at all, although energy is involved with everything. It feels more like there is something going on between she and your son and you that you may not even be aware of, a triangle situation. You know, who knows, your son may be comparing her to you every time. You know, my mother makes this food better, you know. And that has a way of making people shut down. You may have no control over that. And all I can, you know, suggest to you is that if you, and this is just in general for everybody who's listening, if you should feel that someone is energetically retreating from you, instead of pursuing that person and trying to push your energy at them to force them to open back up again, honor their space. Because they may have a reason for closing down that you don't even know. It may be that they're feeling sick and they don't want to give you a cold. It may be that they are having emotional feelings they're ashamed of and don't want to share with you. There could be 1,001 reasons. Just honor that. Instead of being hurt by it, honor it. Okay?
Well, you know, somebody else mentioned that she ignores me, and I felt that. And somebody else actually said it to me, so therefore I say, I know what I was feeling. I was trying to push that feeling away, but it's true because somebody else actually stated it and observed it.
Yeah, well, and that I can't say, not having been there, but it's, I'll go back and say what I said before, it's not about what other people are saying, it's not ever about what other people are saying, it is about what you're feeling. And if you're feeling that she's withdrawing from you, and I don't doubt you're feeling, but you must recognize that there is a reason, and it's a reason you don't know. And those other people don't know that reason either. And until she comes out and says, well, this is why, guess what? Honor the fact that she's withdrawn and just step back from her and say, okay, that's okay,
Yep.
just her. Okay? And you know, that's what you've done, isn't it?
There's no other way, because I'm not going to push myself on somebody, that's for sure.
And you know, that's the best thing. Because when you push yourself on somebody, it's much like a, you know, it's much like a little puppy dog jumping all over and licking and scratching and scraping. You don't want to be around somebody who doesn't want to leave you alone when you don't want to be bothered. But you know, the people who give you your space and who honor you, guess what? You're eventually going to open back up to them because you feel comfortable with those people. Isn't that interesting? So
Yeah.
give that a try and stop feeling bad about it. And please stop listening to all those friends who think they know better. Because generally speaking, they don't. Okay?
It's an older woman, a mother-in-law in another generation, much older.
Yeah.
She has nothing to gain by saying something like that.
Except, hold it, no, this leads to a whole different story. When we look at the world of energy, she may have everything to gain. Because if you are a high energy person who, through your fear of rejection, releases large amounts, real good jolts of energy, when you are insecure about your loved ones loving you, boy, oh boy, you're the perfect person to stick the pin in, aren't you, if I'm low on energy. Give some thought to that. Yeah, okay? But don't listen to the other people. It's about you, and it's about how you feel, okay? And you are feeling correctly, and you're reacting correctly, and don't go listening to the other people who probably have their own agenda. Everybody needs to know, okay? And thank you for asking the question. You're welcome. And, you know, we're at 10:01. I would love to keep taking questions because I know we could be talking about this all night. And yes, we are still talking about the world of energy. And I want to say again that my Psychic Development Level 2 class is about energy and auras. It's about how to feel the energy, how to identify what you're feeling, how to identify exactly where it's coming from, why it's coming, what's really going on there, how to see the energy. Anybody and everybody can see auras, can feel auras, can learn to read auras. And it's just a wonderful skill. It's very satisfying. And especially people who are interested in any kind of healing work or who have received healing work should, or who are just energy sensitive, should be reaching out and studying this work. So I want to thank everyone who's been here tonight. You are all just great. Please remember my Psychic Development Level 2 class is coming up in Tampa, Florida in 2 weeks. Go to my website to check out that class and all the other classes that I teach. And check out other web-based classes that I have online. You might be interested in something else. I'm trying to do a whole little group of free online webinars for people who are just thinking they might be interested and would like to know more about these subjects. Before Psychic Development Level 3 next month, I will be doing another one of these. So if you have any friends that you think would be interested, tell them to sign up for my mailing list, and they will be notified along with you and also on my Facebook about when my next webinar is. Thank you all. It's been a delight, and hopefully I'll see you back again next month or later this week when I do the Kabbalah webinar. Thank you.